All right, so in the previous lecture, I introduced you to the three different forms of capital: economic, social, and cultural. And one of the readings I assigned to you is by Annette Lareau, who presents her ethnography on the different styles of parenting. She is looking at primarily Black and white families. She's looking at poor, working class, middle class, and upper middle class families. And what she comes up with is two different styles of parenting that she observes. In the middle and upper middle class families, she looks at a style of parenting that she calls concerted cultivation. The idea is that these parents look at raising their children as a very intentional process that is very intensive. It requires hyper organizing their children's lives sometimes. They are preparing their children with not just the academic stuff, but a lot of extracurricular activities and so on. But what's interesting about this concerted cultivation is that even when parents are disciplining their kids, it's probably by giving them time out, right? So there's very little corporal punishment or none at all, and parents are talking to their children a lot more. In fact, cognitive scientists find that middle class kids have much larger vocabularies already by the age of 5. That's why you have the First 5 campaign, which keeps talking about talk to your kids, sing to your kids, read to your kids, right? Because brains are like sponges, especially in that 0 to 5 age group. And indeed, what you find is that middle class children have reasoning and critical thinking skills that are more advanced, language and conversational skills that might be more advanced. They have more confidence interacting with authority figures, asking questions, right? They know how to navigate institutions and power structures, which means you are already opening up doors to different kinds of opportunities, right? They know how to navigate the school system, ask questions, right? Know the process of all the hoops you need to jump through to get to college and university, how to find opportunities in the job market, right? Think of career pathways. So, as many of you are finding out, this is a pretty complex process, and that's why we say that to be first generation in college is pretty challenging, precisely because there's a lot to navigate, right? That's where all the cultural capital is, right? Which, if you have parents who went to college or siblings who went to college, you're already exposed to the different ways in which you need to navigate, ask questions. And you'll see middle class parents doing this pretty early on. You go to a restaurant, practice ordering your own food, ask your dentist questions, right? And so middle class kids grow up with this sense of entitlement, is what Lareau is saying, that, hey, I have a right to ask questions. And even into adulthood, the sense of entitlement is what is giving folks confidence for that job interview, confidence to go up and ask for that promotion that I know I deserve, right? And what's amazing is, again, cultural capital operates in a way that you can't teach this in a 2-week job training session, right? That firm handshake and making eye contact is just the very surface level thing, right? And you can't transmit that in 2 weeks. It's a lifetime of cultural capital that you have access to simply by your social location, right? And Annette Lareau contrasts that with the working class parenting style, which she calls the accomplishment of natural growth, right? And the working class parenting style she describes is a lot more hands off. So, working class parents see their parenting responsibilities mostly as if I can put food on your table, clothes on your back, give you a safe place to live, I've done a pretty good job as a parent. That's my primary job, right? Disciplining styles might be very different, right? There's no talking or democracy. It's like you do this because I told you to do this, right? There's no discussion about it, okay? After school, children are a lot more responsible to think of how they will engage themselves in that additional free time. Also, working class parents are raising their kids with a sense of constraint rather than a sense of entitlement. Working class parents trust authority figures to be the experts, right? They defer to teachers when they are trying to make decisions about their kids' schooling, right? Now, this is very interesting. You might have heard of gifted and talented programs, right? So, a lot of middle class parents will actually go fight it out with their kids' teachers to say, I think she needs to be tested one more time. She belongs in the gifted program. Working class parents will just defer to the teachers. Hey, you're the expert. You know what my child's ability is, right? Some working class parents have never been to college themselves, so they don't feel that sense of confidence to go up and negotiate with authority figures, right? And this is remarkable because, again, that means the trajectory is quite a bit different for working class parents as compared to middle class children, right? Because middle class children have their parents advocating for them to say, no, I think she needs to be placed in the AP biology class, right? Now, very important point from Lareau is that she is not arguing that one style of parenting is necessarily inherently better than the other style of parenting, right? And Lareau does this by pointing out the pros and cons of both styles of parenting, right? So, yes, middle class kids have better navigational skills, better conversation skills, critical thinking, reasoning. But there are many disadvantages with concerted cultivation. The image I have is of the term helicopter parenting, which is parents that tend to hover, right? And don't develop life skills in their children. You have middle class kids who don't know how to do laundry, who don't know how to boil an egg, right? And you notice this in kind of the nervous breakdowns that happen when suburban middle class kids end up at university. And for the first time in their lives, they have to do things like make food to feed themselves, do their laundry, right? Many actually have nervous breakdowns, right? Because turns out while middle class parents were teaching our kids how to play the piano, how to do martial arts, how to be in chess club, how to do math olympiad, we forgot to teach them the life skills that are so essential to survive. Also, middle class or upper middle class children tend to be more self-centered than working class kids. Working class kids have close kinship ties. They're closer with their cousins because sometimes working class families have to pool resources when it comes to childcare and so on. Middle class and upper middle class kids tend to be more individualistic. Laura did a simple experiment. She said, if I gave you $100 for Christmas, what would you do? And a lot of the middle class, upper middle class kids responded, well, I would save it for my Xbox or something like that. Whereas one of the poorer kids that she interviewed said that she would buy some dolls, and then she said, I would buy a teddy bear for my cousin, a sweater for my grandma, and so on and so forth. So just with that simple experiment, Laro demonstrates the different mindsets, right? Middle class kids sometimes will have kind of a negative rivalry with their siblings. Hey, you might be good at soccer, but I'm best at chess, kind of idea. And so they develop very different relationships, right? Because it gets very competitive. So those are important things to consider. So again, Laro is not saying that one style of parenting is necessarily better than the other, but the very important point is that one style of parenting is rewarded more than the other, right? One style of parenting is seen as, oh, these kids have engaged parents. These are children that value school. These are kids that are college bound, have a lot of potential, etc. Meanwhile, the other style, the working class style of parenting is seen as, these parents, they don't really care about school as much. They're not very forthcoming with what their kids' career goals might be, etc. Right? So one style of parenting gets rewarded more than the other, and in this subtle way, we perpetuate inequality in our society. Because remember, again, education is the only thing, only claim we have to an equal opportunity society. And we know again that, first of all, we have widespread inequality in our funding. And then, as we are pointing out, the more subtle forms of inequality manifest through differential levels of cultural capital that we have with school officials, right? And again, if we're not at the same starting point, this means that our futures are very much determined by what kind of cultural capital we are able to deploy at the school level, right? So in our next segment, we will start talking about some of the dominant myths as well as facts that exist about poverty in the US.